Heads up! If you haven't read Red Rising, you are going to want to tread cautiously on this one. Any and all of the books in the series are fair game.
Welcome to Words and Whiskey Short Pours, a monthly podcast where we have a fun time discussing fictional worlds and the people that create them, all while boozing just a little bit. My name is Cross.
And my name is PJ. We're tinkering with a new intro, which is fun. So this is
total chaos.
Yeah.
So today's episode is one that's been brewing for a long time. We've been talking about doing this for so long, and I'm so very excited to welcome our guest today. She is the artist behind PB Doodles and Grumpy Sea Urchin.
Are we going to try to pretend that this was one recording, or are we just going to address it right away?
Great question. I think it's more fun to address it being like, yes, damaged audio, and the reason we came here.
Just pretend, we can just pretend like it never happened and just have everyone be completely confused.
Yeah. Yeah, just be like, this is just additional stuff. You missed out on some previous information. It's fine.
We all had to do a wardrobe change and a lighting change. So big deal, guys.
So I'm just going to run through. I realized that I fucking said this like 3 different ways yesterday. Is it Bree? Bree's fine? Brianna? Which way do you say it?
Brianna. Okay. And like it's gotten to the point where it's like I have so many names at this point that I just kind of respond to.
That's fair.
I don't know, guys.
Well, we are very glad to have you on the show this afternoon.
Really excited to be here because I know like we talked about doing this a long time, so I'm like super stoked. This is great.
Yeah, we're very excited. So we're gonna kick it off kind of right away. For those of you who are listening to this, I may or may not keep this. We lost the first part of our interview. So we are like restarting right here, right now. And then it'll cut in later, maybe to the other thing. Maybe it won't. Maybe this will go into the void. Who knows? But I wanted to break in and obviously have a conversation discussing the project that you've coming out with Shit Escalates and Midnight Cards. What can you tell us about the collaboration and the collaborators and the project in general? What brought you together? Why playing cards?
Why playing cards? All these people. So, playing cards because that's what Randy does, and that's how he approached the project to me. I was out hiking, and I got this like Instagram message from like this guy, and it was super professional. I was like, "Hey, my name is Randy Butterfield." Like paragraph. And I'm like, "Okay, I'll read it." And I didn't take it really seriously at first. I mean, I was just like, "Everyone wants it." I get like. I'm not gonna say I get propositioned because that sounds real bad, but I guess that's the right word for it. Like projects all the time. So I was just like, okay, I'll look at this like when I get it to the car. And so I, brought it back up and was like, oh wow, he's actually serious. He actually wants to do these playing cards and he does really good playing cards. Like, okay, cool. It's a serious business. Like on his Instagram page, he had all the past decks he'd done. He had like pictures of, his setup at Comic Cons and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, he's actually has some like substance to what he wants. So I messaged him and I'm like, absolutely, this sounds like so much fun. I'm so excited. What do you need from me? And so he's like, well, give me the file for Ragnar and Darrow and we'll do some mock-up cards. And idea was perfect because like I had done a collaboration with Shit Escalates before, so I already had a direct line to Joel. And so I told Randy, I'm like, get this to me as soon as you can, which Randy is wildly organized, which is scary. So he had it to me like very quickly. I sent everything off to Joel and then I messaged Joel and I was like, hey, I have something for you to look at. Like, whenever you're ready, just look at it. And surprisingly, Joel got back to me. And I say surprisingly because we all joke with him, like he'll take his phone and then like get a text message and then toss it into a lake. So it's
That's me.
PJ.
It's also PJ for sure. It's impossible to communicate.
So I was like super shocked that we got a response back and Joel was like, holy shit, let's do it. This is fantastic. I'm so excited. Let me show Pierce. And like Pierce, like apparently, according to Joel, I have the message somewhere. Pierce was like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. And so we have all these little baby like our little presentation. I still have it somewhere. And so that was like immediately like, we're gonna do this. So we all sat together and we decided which 14 characters we wanted in the deck. And there was some back and forth there. And once we got that nailed down, I had to go ahead and do all these rough drafts for these characters, which took forever. That was because there's a ton of new characters I'd never drawn before, and I was just like, oh, wait. So, and then Pierce has to like them. It's not me screwing around on Instagram anymore. So,
There's so many of those too in the deck. We got an advanced copy. And Nero, like in particular, looks fantastic. All of them look fantastic. That's like underplaying it for sure. But like, I definitely want to leave some surprises for folks. But there's so many new portraits and like approaching those. How'd you feel about that?
yeah, it was really daunting. I know in our last like our first recording I was talking about like how like I wanted to stick as close to the source material as like physically possible. And so like Nero to me in my mind was like had like elements of Peter Cushing, which according to Pierce was correct. But like I can't take all the credit. Pierce is a very, very specific on how he describes his character, so it made my job super easy. So yeah, Nero had some Peter Cushing cheekbones going on there and some I'm not gonna do my impression, never mind. Anyway, and then the Sovereign was like I didn't want to draw the Sovereign until the Swinton or Swanton Swift, whatever.
Swinton, yeah, you had it.
Lady from Doctor Strange, that lady, I love her. I think her face is beautiful, but like the Sovereign is described as being a handsome woman with a like basically a Roman nose and strong jawline, which Tilda does not have. So a lot of like, the process of drawing these characters is like I use the reference material, but not in the way people think I do. Like I have Pinterest boards full of thousands of facial features that I like. And so it's like putting together a very complicated puzzle and then trying to make those pieces fit. So like I'll see a nose that I like or a nostril I like. I don't know. There's so many like little tiny elements to the human face. And
That's
I'll just
fascinating.
so it's like doing a collage, like, in preschool, we'd like cut out little like magazines and make our own faces. So it's kind of like that. But I have to make all the proportions work. So that was a fun challenge because, you're not only are you drawing these characters, but you're pulling them out of the ether. And then if I had already drawn the characters before, they had to be somewhat like cohesive with the other characters I'd drawn. So there were some characters that I'd only drawn face on. But when you turn a human to the side, their profile is very like in my opinion, it's very hard to predict what a person's profile looks like from face on because some people have face on and they turn to the side and you're like that's a totally different person. So there was a lot of like spatial play, and I'm really bad at spatial orientation, so that was really really rough for me to do. Um, so after we got all of the rough drafts done, I sent them to Joel, and then Joel sent them to Pierce, and then we all waited uncomfortably. And Pierce got back, and he was like, he was so nice. Like he was just, I don't know, like he's just some nice guy. So like, if he had any critiques, there wasn't very many. He's like, that character's nose is a little bit too big, but like that was it. And I was just like, oh, just so happy. I don't want to do so much extra work. So we got those approved. Then they came back to me for like so many edits because I was the one being the perfectionist. I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like that. Leave like shade, whatever. And then put the final touches on. And then I sent them to Randy and Joel. They looked at them again. They kind of did placements and then would run back to me because contrasting stuff was weird. When you print cards, it goes from something called RGB to CMYK because most printers are CMYK. So we had to make sure all the colors lined up. And yeah, so that was a pain. And so most of the process, because this was actually like proposed back in March, most of the process was just like hurry up and wait, like in a government building. Or, just the finer tuned details that are super boring to talk about, but it is the creative process. So, yeah.
It is. That's the trick of drafts,
awesome.
right? Like no one ever wants to talk about drafting and like how that whole process works. They're just like, oh, the end product is so good. And it's like, you should have seen it when it was a fucking stick figure. Like it was awful.
Joel wants me to post some of my like super rough drafts of characters, and I'm like, oh, I really don't want to, Joel. Please don't make me. Like I look at my rough drafts and I'm like, I swear I can draw you guys. They're bad. But I might. I don't know.
It can be fun to see that evolution, but it can also be stressful. I know, just from this probably won't end up in it, but just from like a friend to friend perspective, like I have been writing and working on this book forever, and I think all of my friends at various points have been like, give me a draft, give me a draft, give me a draft. I've been like, fuck no, this is awful. There's so much trash in here. I can't do that. Nope.
Yeah, so like I had 3 of my friends were my focus group, I guess, if you will, that I would send like pictures of my progress to. And like they're very good friends because when you show your friends like your rough draft, you're basically like parading naked in front of them, being like, look at me, but don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Look at me, but don't judge.
yes, exactly. Like avert that eyes, but also I need feedback. So like I I have really good friends and very like they were I can take constructive criticism from people I care about. Like so it was fine. It was like, I think maybe that this needs to be, oriented or, this facial feature looks weird or whatever. So that was good, but very stressful. I honestly think sometimes like sending my friends some of these pictures was more stressful than me to send them to Pierce because my friends know me well enough to be like, yo, bitch, that looks awful. Never really said that, but they
But
probably thought and it'll be okay. So, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, other than I had a focus group. And oh yeah, sharing your rough drafts is really hard.
yeah. And you had this project going on at the same time as the late night letterer project.
Yeah, oh, that's right.
Yeah. Nerdy Yank.
Top of all of these like designs that I was doing for the card deck, I was also doing the I guess line art or like the templates. We call them templates for Alexis's book covers. And so it all hit at once because Alexis, he had the book covers planned for months and months and months. And I was just like, contact me whenever you're ready. And of course, when she was ready, it was literally right when we were ready to start designing cards, which in the end did actually turn out to be a good thing because I was able to keep everything cohesive. Like the Cassius on the cards is basically the same template that we used for the book because I had actually drawn another Cassius in profile, but Pierce was like, I like that one. I'm like, okay, let's go with the one that Pierce likes. So that's one of the reasons, like there's a few cards in there that aren't in profile. And it was just because that's just like just liked it better. So, Howler one has final say. So yeah, it was very, 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 very stressful because I was also working on a couple other projects at the same time. So trying to time manage, and I am the queen of horrific time management, was something of legend.
I mean, the good news is around you, it sounds like you had incredibly organized partners. So that feeds into like.
So, like, Joel, I don't know if you've seen Joel's art. Joel is a fantastic, exceptionally talented artist. And he and I joke all the time, but we're like, we are definitely artist brained. Randy, however, was like, he had like Clydesdale blinders on. He was just like laser focused the entire time. He kept us on track. He was like, you should see Randy's emails. They are like bullet point paragraph, like categories, Excel spreadsheets. And when I would write back, I'd be like, this looks great. Very good. I mean, if it were not for Randy, I don't actually think this project would have been as amazing as it turned out to be. Because Randy was leading from the front and the back, keeping us all on focus or on task. So everyone needs a Randy as a project manager.
I want to go backwards just a little bit. You mentioned how Pierce is pretty descriptive in all of his characters. Are there any that were a little bit more sparse and you needed to take more freedoms in their design?
Since I don't have it with me, I usually have a spare card deck with me for some reason.
Because you're just like, this is so cool. So you just keep it with you. Yeah.
It's like a child is like, look what I did. Hold it. Look at it. So, oh yeah, okay. So the characters that were a little less descriptive than I would have liked them to be. We don't really get a good description, and like maybe we do, but like the mine scenes are like not my favorite, so I kind of like spark notes through them. Like Red Darrow, wasn't I wouldn't say he was described, but like in my head, like he was very, very like there was a very specific look I had, and I'm not entirely sure if it was exactly how he was described. The Sovereign was super hard to draw. Because I think again it goes back to like people. Like, I had to stay out of the Reddit subreddits for fan casting. It's because I feel like people have like preconceived notions, like, oh, that's not how I pictured it. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not in your head if you didn't know how you pictured it, whatever. Sovereign was difficult for me to draw. Other than that, I think that was like the only one I really struggled with. Cassius, I always struggle with because I don't like Cassius very much. I've drawn him the most, but he looks like handsome Squidward in my brain, so he's handsome Squidward for forever. Yeah.
Oh, that is perfect. That is amazing.
He's probably the most well described next to Severo out of the whole book. And like when Darrow, before he takes the exam, like you have this like Pierce describes him as this like Greek statue with golden curls and like this chin and a nose and everything. And so of course I go right back to that SpongeBob episode. But Cassius, like when I was using reference material for Cassius, I was using a mix of like actual people, but just straight up Greek sculpture. Like how, and there's a very, very specific style of Greek sculpture that I use for Cassius. So Cassius was hard. So is Sovereign. Darrow was just hard because Darrow has to live up to this like image in most people's minds. And I had already drawn Darrow, but I had to draw Darrow other side of his face, and I had to keep like I had grown in my skill since I had drawn that Darrow, but I had to stay true to the original Darrow. That was so like technically that was probably the hardest. Yeah.
I gotta ask about Roke because I'm that person.
Yes, ask away.
How'd you come up with Roke's drawing? I really enjoy kind of the locks that are kind of laying down on the shoulder and everything.
So I had drawn Roke before. This was one of the first like Red Rising characters I'd ever drawn. And I had used like this one picture of this guy that I loved his facial features. I changed it up a little bit, but I really liked like that wistful. In the picture, the guy was looking at a completely different direction, but I saw this like image in my head of like this wistful, like poetic, like I'm, not in my own like off in his head. But Roke in the book is described as having like long, beautiful, like golden straw hair. In the first Roke I did, he had short hair. So I went ahead and like I think I drew the other side of Roke's face. I gave him the long, beautiful hair that I wish I had. Sad. And it just kind of went from there. But Roke, like, still my babies. Like, they're not my babies, they're Pierce's characters, but like, I don't know. They all taught me something, and I just very grateful for the lessons that my drawings have imparted upon me. Let me go all like Eastern on you guys here. Yeah. Anyway, so EO was really hard for me to draw too. Like because when we came up with the idea of having, by the way, when this episode comes out, we'll have released the Kickstarter so everyone will see the cards. So I like talk about whatever.
Yeah.
EO was really hard to draw because EO again is one of those characters that I feel like people have like a like preconceived notion of her. And Darrow's always saying, "Oh, she's so beautiful," and then he sees Mustang, and then he's like, "Oh my gosh, she's so pretty." And so you're like, where is your like dividing line of like what's pretty and what's like? So I had to like draw her like girlish because she's 16 in the book, and that one was a challenge too. I mean, they're all hard and easy at the same time. Not answering your question.
No, of course. On those that were a little bit more difficult for you, did you get more feedback from Pierce?
No. So actually, when like I didn't tell him they were hard to draw.
Okay.
I was literally like, "Here you go. I hope you like." And so anyway, yeah, Pierce is super awesome. He was super, super nice. I really honestly like I don't want to sound like a Pierce Brown simp, but he's really actually really awesome. So are his stand the kids using these days? Like I stand Pierce Brown.
Simp, stan, whatever works.
I don't even know what these mean. I just see it on Reddit and I'm like, kids these days. At a geriatric age of 30 now, so
Yeah, that's fair. Geriatric. May as well be in the retirement home.
Might as well. I feel my joints crumbling away as we speak.
I have one additional question, kind of off the cuff. What are your feelings about your work becoming not quite canon, but more or less the official like visages of these characters?
Very uncomfortable with it. It's very uncomfy. And it's like, let me explain why it's uncomfy. It's one of those things where like I started doing this to just screw around on Instagram. It's not canon, but enough people now associate my characters with the actual book characters. I don't want to get myself in hot water here. Like, I don't want to, like, you know, wreck the brand. I'm feeling very uncomfortable on so many levels with this. You always hope, but I didn't expect it to get this big. And so I was like on the holiday Bacchanal, I was telling Pierce, I'm like, I feel like now I have this exceptional responsibility to be as like respectful and honoring of the characters as physically possible. So now I feel like this great weight of drawing these characters, but I still have fun with it, but I'm still uncomfy because it went from being like, look at this thing I drew. Would you like to put it on your fridge to like people messaging me being like, this is how I see the character now. I'm like, hold up, that is too much responsibility for me. I can barely remember to eat breakfast. So that's how I feel about it. Uncomfy, but grateful. Let me just like rephrase. Super grateful. I met so many friends and stuff on this platform. This has opened up so many doors, but just like this intense creative anxiety of making sure I get it right.
Right. That makes total sense. Going forward, assuming you're planning on continuing to draw portraits like this of these characters, will it change your approach on how you publish your works?
Like working with shit escalates or just like how I approach how I do my character drawings.
Um, Either or both, or just posting on your Instagram, like, less pressure, obviously, if it's not a part of a product, but potentially still has that weight.
It has the weight, but I was telling a friend, or at the time we weren't quite friends yet, but we're really good friends now. I talk to her every day, and I was just like, the minute this stops being fun, I will stop doing it. Um, because like the minute, so people are like, well, you should draw this character from this, like this is this book or whatever month, but I don't have the emotional connection to it. So I feel like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it's still fun for me, and I still feel like emotionally connected to these characters. And I feel like if I try to change that, then some authenticity will be lost in how I post on Instagram. So my hope is just to continue being as authentic as possible with these characters and how I draw them because it's worked so far. So keep doing that. Yeah.
And that totally makes sense, especially considering, obviously like Dune you're very connected to as well. Those portraits were awesome, experimenting digital. Um I recall, I think you maybe also drew Kaladin or Dalinar from the Stormlight Archive. The
Uh, I get so this is me and my terrible time management. It is my ultimate goal to draw the entirety of the characters from the Stormlight Archives because I actually it's one of the few fantasy series I actually like. I'm gonna redraw Kaladin because like I want to. And I want to redraw Yasna and I want to Shalon is super clear in my head. And so like and the other one I really want to draw is Quoth from Name of the Wind. Like that character is like bam, right in the noggin. So it's very difficult and this is one of the reasons why I don't take commissions or I keep my commissions very small. 'Cause like, will you draw my OC? And I'm like, I don't know you and I don't know your OC. This is gonna be very bad. So yeah.
Mhm.
right. Keep it to what you're strictly passionate about, which is, imagining these characters and keeping it fun to that same degree. Like that's the important thing.
Exactly. And so that's kind of how I approach all of it. I'm just like I'm trying not to complicate it because my superpower is overcomplicating things.
I mean, that's not a bad superpower to have. It just, makes it more complicated.
You can have it if you want it.
No, I'm good. I do that on my own. Thank you.
Like the Fantastic Five. Wait, that's not a group. Is it? Fantastic
Yes.
Four? I have been watching way too much Queer Eye lately, so clearly my brain is over there. Anyway.
Not a bad one.
I think that brings us to another question. You mentioned that you like to draw these characters because you are passionate about them and their source. What brought you to Red Rising, and how did you fall in love with it?
And one of my best friends' basement's Rebecca. We were painting her basement, and she's like, I'm bored. Let's listen to something. She's like, what do you want to listen to? And I was like, dude, I don't know. This is your house. You tell me. Because I don't make executive decisions because they're hard. And she was like, okay, well, I'm going to put on Red Rising because I listen to this book multiple times a year. I think you'll really like it. And I was like, cool. So we start book one, page one on the audiobook. And it was obviously the mining scenes and it was good. I mean, like I was interested in it, but I was also not really paying that much attention to it. Thebes was in a very sad space. And I was just like, I need something to just like, I need some serious escapism. I just finished, so I think I just finished Stormlight Archives and I was like, I got nothing. So I texted Rebecca and I was just like, what was that book called? Because I'm desperate and I will now listen to a book that I was like maybe halfway interested in, which was some horrifying to it's that's horrifying to admit. Anyway, so she's like, oh, it's Red Rising, you have to like listen to it. And I listened to it and it took me 2 days. Like I was like, oh, this is actually really good. Um, like, it was the carving scene that I was just like, "What?" And then it just, like, the Roman inspiration and, like, the entirety of the first book is still my favorite book. A lot of people like, "Oh, it's kinda, like, young adulty," and I'm like, "I don't care." That book, like, I've listened to it so many times. I freaking love it. Um, and then I think I've, like, had gone through the entire series within a month, and then I started it over again because I was just like, "I need it. I need more." Um And it was like a mix of like I am a humongous Greek mythology buff. Huge. Massive. Same thing with like Egyptian mythology. I love all the ancient mythologies. And so it like spoke to me on a different level. And then I love character development. It's one of the things that like is like key for me when I read a book. If there's no character development, the book goes in the garbage. So the what really drew me into the books themselves was the character dynamics and character relationships. And I was like, okay, cool. So then 2020 happened to all of us. And then the pandemic hit. And I had to close down my business. No big deal. I was kind of sitting around twiddling my thumbs and I'm like, okay, like the one moment I've always wanted has happened where I literally can't work. And I guess that means I have to work on my art now. And it was coming out of like 6 to 7 year long dry spell. And during that time I had done like maybe one or two art pieces a year if I was lucky. And I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to draw. Like I just like tapped out. Like, do I draw still life? Like nobody wants to look at like an apple and an orange. Like still life is still to this day one of my least favorite things to draw. Anyway, so I was like, why don't I just draw like these characters? I love them so much. Let's get back into character design, which is something I'd always wanted to just give, try my hand at. One thing I forgot to mention was like the year, no, the December of the pandemic or December of 2019. I was actually one of my friends, her name is Skirts. She's one of DeviantArt's top artists. I have really bizarre connections. We were actually out for coffee in December, and I said, like, Allie, like, I can't do this job anymore. It's tearing me apart. Like, I'm bored. I've been doing this for 7 years. Like, I want to try to give this art thing a go. And she was just like, well, my only advice to you is like, you actually have to sit down and do it every single day. And you have to like, if you have to realize like it's going to be super hard and it's going to suck, but the alternative is you're going to do your whatever, the other thing forever if you don't actually make a change. So then of course like January hit and this weird the virus started happening and then I had to shut my business down and I was like, well, I guess now is the time to show up every day. And Allie does a lot of character art for Final Fantasy and Disney and stuff. She got really unpopular because of her Disney stuff. And so I was like, she told me like if you want to try to make art work for you, why don't you pick like something that you love so much that you can share with people and that it will resonate with them. So it's like, okay, well, I don't know what the fan base for Red Rising is like, but I like it. So I'm just gonna draw. I drew the jackal first, but it wasn't really the jackal. And then I drew several. And then like I got to screw around because at that time I had like 150 followers. And like I'm gonna draw a ballpoint pen and I'm gonna throw shiny shit on it. And I'm gonna pretend like I'm a crow and this is gonna be fantastic. And then it started getting attention, and I was just like, I have I have friends and they like it. Yay. And so like you have this little like dopamine hits or you're like, we want more. And you're like, okay, I guess I'll draw more. This is good fun. So um and then I just kept drawing and people started requesting stuff and I started making friendships and I started getting like involved with like Discord channels and it became like literally like a sanity saver when we were all isolated. Um and the Red Rising community just literally pulled me through that whole phase of whatever 2020 and 2021 was. So that's how it all started.
It's such a good story.
It's true story.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that that's also it's really interesting. We were afforded kind of the similar opportunity to start this whole thing in the same sort of vein, and it's so cool to have like watched this whole page. I was obsessed with Red Rising, and I saw this spring out of nowhere, and that was part of the impetus to like start the whole. It was just like there was the series of events that led to all of us doing this kind of shit at the same time, and it was so cool and so very glad. It was just awesome.
I look back at where I was like a year and a half ago, and then I look and where I'm at now and how many creators I know now and how much more awesome my life is. And I'm just kind of grateful that everything fell apart.
It's like a cheesy Nicholas Sparks time line. I'm not even drinking. This is awful. Cheesy Nicholas Sparks line, but like everything falls apart to fall back together, right? Or things fall apart to fall back together. That might actually be a Chinwe Achebe line from Things Fall Apart, but I don't remember. Anyway, I'm the quote dude, and I can't remember the quote, so maybe I need something to drink.
Yeah, I know the pandemic just opened up a lot of creative opportunities for everyone, and I think that's really, really awesome because I honestly think most people just really just want to create, and I just love that most people just were forced to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. So cool.
So cool. Now, I want to know which one's your favorite cards.
Man, favorite looking at these. I really enjoyed the teeth bared on both Ragnar and Aja. I was just kind of curious why there wasn't a third, but at the same time there is. Like Severo has his teeth bared. The pairings are what I was trying to work out. Going back to this, how'd you guys decide your pairings of characters?
So this one was this was another one of the deliberation things where we really went back and forth. So let me pull it back up. So obviously the Suite of Hearts is obvious. It's Severo, Darrow, and Mustang.
Yeah, it's the primary three. That makes total sense.
They go together and you just can't separate them. So and then I know so the Ragnar, Aja, and Cassius, they were all grouped together because of in my view of the scene in Morningstar. Because yeah. And so you have this idea of complete opposing forces that are all represented in that suite. So you have the gold of Aja, the true gold, and then you have Cassius, who's kind of stupid. I didn't say that out loud. I did.
No, you did. It's okay.
These opposing forces, and also they're major players in that seed. So we grouped them together. The Outcast one, or the Outcast suite, was Fitchner, Adrius, and Victra. And they were all golds that didn't quite fit the mold. So Victra's off doing her own thing. She represents a completely different part of House Julia, where she ends up joining the Rising. Of course, you have Fitchner, who is, Aries, and then you have Adrius, who's literally running his own program at all times. So you have the Outcast. And then the final suite was those are the core golds. You have what gold is supposed to represent. You have obviously the Sovereign, then you have Rank, who it embodied what gold was supposed to be, and then of course what's his butt, Nero. So that's how we grouped them all together. So it was more like a character pairing and what they represent than anything else. And then of course the Jokers were, it's can't figure that one out, I can't help you.
That's fantastic. I've been trying to work that out for a while, and I hadn't spent that much time staring at the image to really work that out, but I love that as an explanation for exactly where these line up, and it totally makes sense. It's perfect.
Yeah, and so it was one of those things where I was pretty insistent on that's how that they should be paired together. I didn't want to be that person, but I was this is the only thing that makes logical sense to me, guys. We should really do it this way. And that was probably one of the only things I was super pushy on when designing the card decks. After that, I told Randy to just do whatever the heck he wanted with how he placed them and everything like that. But I was they have to be grouped this way because it's the only way that makes sense with the 14 characters we have. I'm not usually a push person.
No, I think that makes total sense. and I think I completely agree with you. To answer your question, I think my favorite of the portraits is Victra.
Victra. Yeah, so Pierce was
Yeah.
like,
So there, it's so good.
I want to. I'm gonna find that email, and then I'll send you a picture of it. But Pierce is like, she's like hot as fuck or something like that. It's just like, thank you, Pierce. I tried. Like, I wanted her to be a like the vixen. I don't know if he actually said that, but that was the tone I got. So she's one of my favorites.
That was the answer in your head, regardless of what he actually said. It was like, yes.
I gotta find it. I know Randy's gotta have that email somewhere. And then,
Gosh, so cool. So PJ, you said Victra. I also really, really like Fitchner. For the record, Fitchner is fantastic. That's definitely my number 2.
I loved drawing Fitchner. Fitchner was fantastic to draw because he's like described as an ugly gold. Like, what does an ugly gold look like? They're not actually ugly because they're still golds, but he still has to have facial features that don't work, right?
Mhm.
So
That so very perfectly matches what I imagined him as. Like, it's amazing. Amazing how perfect.
That hatchet nose is like my nose from a portrait, and my dad's nose, and my brother's nose. Unless my brother's got a little bit more of a button nose, but it is just, yeah. Like, I always hear hatchet face, and I'm like, secretly, I know that that's the way that my nose portrays itself on my face. And I just like, I look at that, and I'm like, that's well done. That one gets me too.
I think, people and noses are funny. Like, I think
Yeah.
people picture like hatchet face, like they think of like the actress who's known as hatchet face, and in a way, like maybe. But when you're talking about gold, and again, I'm not Pierce Brown, so I can't speak for Pierce Brown. But when I'm, when I was envisioning Severo, because Fitchner, I had to pull some of Severo's facial features and slap them onto Fitchner so they looked like they were related. Like, the nose was my favorite thing to draw on Fitchner. Because, like, for one, my husband has a nose that's very similar to that as well. And I've always liked Roman noses, so I was just like, I get to actually draw, like, an actual person's nose. Because in a lot of illustrations you see today, everyone has just the straight European nose. So, noses.
Yeah. So speaking of your drawings in general and kind of what you're enjoying drawing, if you had to pick a favorite child, which child would you pick?
Hate that you can use this question. I hate it so much. What is it? How dare you? How dare you, Cross?
How dare you shirt's coming soon.
I want that shirt. This is like one of my favorite phrases. That's all I can say is how dare you? How dare you ask me this? When I ask you who your favorite... Do you have kids, Cross?
I do not.
So I can't ask you that.
See? Right.
Well, if you did, you'd be like, how could I possibly answer that? Because...
Cross is the kind of person that would absolutely pick a favorite child.
It's true. I actually
Okay, never mind.
I keep curated lists of like my top 50 favorite things in every category because I'm a psycho. It's a completely different problem though.
Well, in that case, I can't help you there.
Yeah.
I'm just
that's my
concerned for
problem.
you.
You should be. I am.
I feel like I don't really ever have a favorite, but I have like a top 20 hits, like type of deal going on where I'm like, all of these are my favorite. Like, I still have like a nice squishy spot in my heart for the first Darrow I ever, and then Victra, and like, I don't know if they're my favorites or if I'm just nostalgic. This is hard. I refuse to answer this question.
I guess I'll riff on it a little bit. Are there any of your drawings that, given the opportunity, you would add into the decks of cards that aren't already in there?
No.
Okay.
Except for maybe Mustang. But they were all just like one of the drawings I've already done at a card deck.
Yeah.
Or no.
Okay.
No, I think they're all exactly right where they need to be.
Perfect. That's good. That's great.
That's a plus.
That is my confident, non-committal answer.
Perfectly in line. Totally understand that. So, obviously we've spent a lot of time talking about Red Rising. Hopefully all of that's recorded. If not, we'll go back and talk about the cards again for sure. But as it stands, are there any other fictional worlds that have like infected your mind in the same kind of way? I'm just curious about like what other, where else your brain goes.
Star Wars, which is not a big secret. Like it's bad, guys. I have pictures of me going to high school events dressed up like Princess Leia. I'm not sorry.
Were they dressed like were they costume events?
No, they were not costume events, PJ. I'm sad to say.
Oh, all right. Okay.
I was one of those kids. I wasn't a theater kid. I was just a weird kid. My first black eye came from a lightsaber, chipped my eyebrow bone. I played Knights of the Old Republic more times than I care to admit. When I was 14 years old, I sewed my own rideable tauntaun. It was actually for my brother. So my love of Star Wars is like knit to the age difference between my brother and I. I was the older sister. We had an 8-year difference. So like I got to be the cool older sister, and I got to play all the video games, and we would eat chicken nuggets and play video games for like hours. And I've seen the original trilogy more times than I can count. I read some of the books, but I was mostly a video game girl. Just all the classics, like Kyle Katarn and like just all of them. All of them. I love them so much. I love all of it. It gets bad, guys. Like I have an unboxed action figure of my absolute favorite Sith Lord Revan.
Of course.
My mind will not be changed. I have some. I'm not gonna say I have so many action figures that are unboxed, but I have a few, so I can retire when I'm 90.
That's actually no joke. So PJ's probably heard the story maybe only once or twice. I don't know how much we've talked about it. But when I was growing up, my dad had an unhealthy obsession with Star Wars, and I grew up around it, and I love Star Wars, always have. I read 100% of the now legacy canon. Like, we have all of the books. Yes. So super nerds there. And that's probably a big part of the reason that I appreciate Red Rising as much as I do. My dad can also, this is just ridiculous. Why am I bragging about my dad? But he can actually recite the entire episode 4 front to back in pace. In tandem, line for line, the whole thing. It is a party trick. You can say, pick up this scene, and he'll just do it. And it is mind-blowing.
I love it.
It is insane. But he had a closet in our basement, like a full back furnace room, that like maybe 500 square feet, wall to wall, unboxed action figures, all of them.
Did you walk in and the angels sang and like this divine light?
Yep. Yeah, it was insane. He kept it for most of our childhood life, and then sold it when I was probably like 14, 15, and bought a really expensive triathlon bike that he rode for a while. That is now in my room over here that I have. So I have the liquidated version of the Star Wars stuff in my room.
That's amazing. Did you at least name the bike something Star Wars related in memory?
I should have. I haven't named it anything. So maybe that's what I need to do is come up with the name for the bike at this point.
If you said you dressed up like, just say Jank or Boba, you could call it the Slaves 3, yeah. Just throw in a number.
Right, that's true. That's not a bad idea.
Is that why it's black with red accents?
Is that why the bike is black with red accents?
Yeah. Was it thematically chosen?
The Sith Lord bike? We did call it that when he was riding it.
That's awesome.
It is. Yeah. It's pretty solid. Good bike. Anyway, point being, it sold for a ridiculous amount of money, all told. So he used that for that and paying off his student loans. So
yeah, because triathlon bikes are really expensive. Hey, again, Josh was into triathlons for a while, and so his boss actually gave him a triathlon bike. That's a story in and of itself. But he was looking at bikes, and I'm going okay, we just save this much. Thankfully, it did come to that because I was just oh boy.
That's a loan. Yeah, for sure. So Star Wars is definitely your choice.
Star Wars, it has impacted my growing up more than probably any other science fiction novel, except maybe just the first Dune.
All right.
So.
Yes.
There we go.
And that's why you went on the whole. You were very into Dune, of course, right when it came out, and kind of had that whole reaction to the movie, as did we, to the point of where we interrupted our main feed and had this whole fucking side episode about how good Dune was, which is also the impetus to start this channel. So that's kind of the whole thing here, was because of that and kind of the reaction to that and those thoughts. So I totally feel you there. PJ, I'm curious. I don't think I've ever picked your mind on this. Is there any other fictional world that's ever impacted you seriously?
Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, okay.
That's
Just checking.
that's it.
I just had to double check.
See, that's like, so I'm Star Wars, Josh is Lord of the Rings. So like I have my Star Wars stuff, and then he has his like his Lord of the Rings shelf, and we just compliment.
Maybe that's the real secret to like relationships, because PJ and I similarly, it's Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. So this just like this fully works as a theme.
When do I get a Lord of the Rings shelf in your bedroom, Crossland?
I actually have a Lord of the Rings shelf with a little smog on it. Just one.
I have. Well, it's not mine. So when Josh's Nima passed away, she bequeathed him the entire like Franklin Mint set of all of the Lord of the Rings like figurines. I told him, because we live in a very small house, like you can have one figure out. We are not having the entire cast of Lord of the Rings on this tiny little like. We literally live in a shoebox, and so Gandalf is the one he chose. Smith Gandalf oversee that.
Is that on a rotation, or is it always Gandalf?
It's always been Gandalf, but I cannot tell you how many Tolkien books we have of different variations and versions. And that's on a rotating thing, because I'm like, again, like our house is so small, and I'm like, okay, this season of Tolkien has to go in the box. I'm really sorry, honey. We'll put him next to Dash Rendar, which I got him as a gift. It's Star Wars gift for me. So yeah.
I was going to say, put the children of Huron down. It's okay. Nobody cares. It's fine. You can put that in the box.
When we were dating, because I've known Josh since we were 13, when we were dating, like I remember one date we were sitting on his parents' porch, and he brought out the Children of Huron and started reading it to me, which was very sweet and romantic, but also I loved it for it, but I was just like, so yeah, Lord of the Rings has a special place in our hearts, so does Star Wars.
Nice. We fall into two of the big three here, so that's good.
Yes.
We can ignore the Harry Potter fans in the audience.
Yeah, amateurs.
Amateurs. How dare you not like the two bigger of the big three?
So just to continue this Star Wars thread a little bit, prequel trilogy or sequel trilogy?
I hate you both. When Cross put this on here, obviously, I was just like, I don't even know how to answer this, because like the sequel trilogy had like its moments of hope. Almost. And then like the problem that I have, like Jeremy will never let me live this down. I would have to say the prequels, as much as it hurts me to say this, because the only reason why I don't like him as much is because Josh and his brother actually rewrote the prequels and how they wanted to, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so good. But I just feel like the newest sequels were so unsalvageable, even though Kylo Ren, so good. So much potential lost. I think I'm still grieving the loss of potential, where I can look at the prequel trilogies and be like, I need something campy to watch today. Let's go there. And it's just like, it's like, doesn't smell like teen spirit. It smells like my childhood. So
that's a fair answer. Yeah,
that's a good answer. That's a tough question. Okay, so you're in general saying prequel because campy joy.
It's campy joy, and then just like sequel trilogy is just disappointment. I can't believe I'm saying this because I hate romance, but I really wanted a Raylo romance, and we just didn't get it. We got like, here's 2 minutes, just gonna throw you guys some peanuts. Good luck.
Yeah, deal with that.
I just, it had like potential, and the scenery was beautiful. It was just visually like spectacular, but I just like, I am such a huge fan of The Mandalorian and Rogue One that I'm like, you could have done this. Why did we not like hire Jon Favreau just to be like the next George Lucas but better, like for everything? Like why would you give it to J.J. Abrams? Like the man can only do one trope, and that is like well, in this timeline, this happened, but I can't do this. I also really like Star Trek, so I feel like
part of me wishes that Star Wars, or like dreams that Star Wars finds another way to erase their canon, because everything is memes anyway, so who cares? Just do what DC did and give up.
I'm here for that. Like I will watch, like, example, like the Book of Boba didn't just start getting good until like now. I hate that the mouse has Disney, because I hate the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So
totally get that. PJ, where do you land on the sequel prequel question?
I didn't get as super into Star Wars as you guys did.
Look at that Lord of
funny,
the
I
Rings fan on his
probably-
high horse over there. You commoners.
No,
The Hobbit sucks.
It did. It hurt me.
that's fair. That's very fair. And I agree with you. But I think I only saw each of the sequel movies once. So just out of sheer volume, I'd go with the prequels.
That's a good answer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cross, did
That's,
you answer?
I feel like that's the right answer.
right,
Like,
yeah.
I feel like that's the right answer. Like, all of my soul wants to be the contrarian and just go like, no, it's the sequels are really good, guys. But also the other part of me is like, I just want to pick the standalones, and I'd like just go with Rogue One and Solo as opposed to either of the groups because Rogue One's just the best.
It is the best. It is like,
To fit the question, prequels.
I answer that question with extreme reservations, as noted.
It's just funny because like there's so much reverence and love for Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
And there's all of this. Obviously, the fandom's massive for a bunch of reasons, and it's like this is so ridiculous because I've spent so much of my time loving Star Wars, but it's kind of like it's a mediocre series in general. But we love the mediocre series. We love our mediocre space wizards.
You know what? It's totally mediocre, but if it were not for like the video games for me, I don't think I would have loved it as much, if that makes sense.
It's fair.
Like, there's that immersive part of like, I'm going to go be a Jedi, or I'm going to go, like, Knights of the Old Republic it shifted how I saw video games as narrative storytelling because of how, like, immersive that game was, where I was just like, oh my gosh, mind blown. I have to just... But the movies, like, outside of the original trilogy, which are campy, but I love them to death, just like the movies have always sucked. And I mean that in the most loving possible way, as someone who dressed up as Star Wars characters to non-costume functions.
Yeah.
That's just such a perfect bit of trivia that I hope to God it got recorded because that was so good. Irreplaceable.
I was not a popular kid, Cross.
No, I get that. I get that for sure.
Put mic. Okay, there we go. I forget this.
You're good.
This
You're
set
good.
has a mic. The other one didn't because they were a crappy airplane.
See, look at that. Leveling up in the world too.
Well, I stole these, so
That's fair. That's fair. Rip Josh's ears.
Yeah. He's the tech
using
guy.
it.
I'm not the tech person.
That could not have been. The timing could not have been better there. That was. That could not have been better timed for everyone at home. The phone just fell. And again, we're the ones who are drinking. You are having a kombucha. The kombucha might be too strong.
That 0.5% really is getting to you, huh?
Anyway, what were we saying?
So getting out of kind of the Star Wars question, I wanted to bring up kind of part of the Howler Holiday Bacchanal, which is something that you took part in, of course, in which you talked about a book you recommended to others and recommended The War of Art, which is by Stephen Pressfield, which is one of my favorite books. I probably read it once a year. I like absolutely blew up when you said that. It was so funny because I was totally typing so many responses and like responding to people who were making jokes at me and everything else in the chat. And I was sending it to the panelists. I was just sending it to you guys the whole time. And I was just alone in this moment. But I did go, yes, I fucking love that. Yeah. But if you had to recommend any other like non-Red Rising book, fiction or nonfiction to our audience, what are some of your like recommendations? What do you recommend to other people?
So I'll pick one that I didn't pick for the Holiday Bacchanal, because for the Holiday Bacchanal, I said obviously Project Hail Mary, because that's like,
Yep.
cannot go wrong. I've only had one person be like, I didn't really like it, and I'm like, oh gosh, okay, whatever. The one, and then the other one I said was Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, which I read every year, and then War of Art. But the one that I will highly, highly recommend to everyone, especially in this day and age, is called Trust Me, I'm Lying. It's written by Ryan Holiday, the stoic guy. I can't with technology tonight. And it is eye-opening. Yes. If you haven't read it.
Yeah. I have.
Okay.
It was the first book that I read from Ryan, but I fucking loved that book. It blew apart my brain.
Right?
And it totally does. Like it completely reshapes the way that you think about your interaction with outrage and media. And it's so prescient from when it was written, because you wrote it in 2011, published in 2012, and basically predicted the changes in social media because of what he was already able to pull off on his own. Oh my God.
And
disgusting.
Just even with the pandemic, with just how much like chaos happened. Reading his book, I haven't been able to take a news source seriously since, because I read it like the middle of the pandemic. I don't remember. I think I'd actually followed him before I knew he wrote the book, because I love just the Stoics in general. And so he was like having a sale on it. And I'm like, okay, I'll read it. But I was just like, holy shit, you've got to be kidding me. And so now I had my dad read it. I had my brother read it. And everyone I can get to read it, because I know it's not like everyone's cup of tea, but it should be in this day and age. So.
Yeah, it feels like it should be mandatory material, to be honest. In media literacy in general. Like, it's just a huge part of media literacy is understanding where people are getting their sources from, where they're cited, how deep are they going, what are they actually doing, are they taking anonymous tips? Was a great point there of like the number of stories that he just completely loaded with anonymous tips. Just absurd.
You know, the one I will say, if people are really interested in super boring, like day-long documentaries that are extremely insightful, if you haven't watched Century of the Self, I've seen it twice. I highly recommend it, because it's kind of along the same lines, but it goes into like the history of propaganda. And it's just, again, that's another one of those mind-blowing type pieces of information. So,
yeah. Trust Me, I'm Lying is wonderful. Another awesome primer. Good picks. Those are my top 5 nonfiction books, both of those. So, God, sucking, pulling mine. What about a fiction? Got any fiction you'd recommend?
Gosh, fiction.
Are you? Yeah.
I've been on a nonfiction kick lately. You know how it is when you're reading like fiction, you're like, the book you're reading is like, that's the best book I've ever read. So like, it's whatever your most recent one is.
Mistborn Era 2 right now. I just finished the 3rd book this afternoon.
Oh gosh. I actually really enjoyed those books. I actually really did. Sanderson can be a little formulaic for me, but I actually really enjoyed them. Let's see. Fiction. Oh gosh, you're gonna have to edit all of this out. I love like The Expanse, like the whole trilogy, as far as like you know, if you've read Red Rising, you're like, what do I read next? Like The Expanse is a good thing to leap into. It's what I found. After I finished Red Rising, I read Dune again because it's Dune. So, you know, when we hang up, I'm gonna like text you and be like, yo, Cross, like this is actually what I wanted to say, but I didn't. So we'll go with The Expanse.
That's fair. That's a reasonable answer.
So you did mention that you had some experience and were sort of into Stoicism before. Did that come before or after Red Rising?
Before.
And if before, okay, what were your thoughts on the way Stoicism was presented, subtly and sometimes not so subtly within the Red Rising universe?
Actually really loved the way it was presented. I find the way or Pierce's, like, how he weaves philosophy in just beautifully. And, like, I would say Lauren is the most stoic character, at least in my opinion. And so I really it's like, I don't want to step on anyone's.
He is Marcus Aurelius.
I know,
let's just be clear.
that's like totally. And I actually really loved Lauren's character because of all of like his values and stoic type dealios or whatever. So it felt true to like that science fiction Roman era to have stoic characters in there. It would have felt naked without them, in my opinion. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Obviously, we're through the series at this point. We've talked about it at length on the show, but that is one of those things that my brain constantly gravitates to, is how Pierce so magnificently intertwined philosophy throughout the series. It's unprecedented in a lot of other cases. Like, it's just, none better.
That's why it's been really hard for me to find a fiction book that I can be like, yeah, I totally recommend. Like, I was actually talking to somebody on Instagram before this, and I told them, like, they're like, what was your last, science fiction book you read? And I was like, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, and they loved it, and I hated it. I hated it so much, and it was just because it was pretty, like it was long. I literally, while I was listening to it, I kept checking audiobooks, like, is it ended yet? Is it almost over yet? It's ridiculous. But it was super surface level. Like, I've gotten to the point where I feel spoiled with Pierce's background in ancient history, where he's able to basically retell stories that I would have considered boring, but in a way that, are very like illuminating to how we are as people yesterday and today.
Yeah, that's been one of the fun projects that I've embarked on over the last couple of months. I recorded a video like 2 months ago at this point on like the follow-ups to Red Rising, like what to read after Red Rising. And I think it's a question that floats around on the Reddit all the time. It's a question that floats around inside these circles all the time. It's like nothing directly compares. And I'm like, well, I don't think a lot of series you can really directly compare. But I think The Expanse is a great example, right? I tend to also lean in the direction of the First Law series by Joe Abercrombie.
I need to read those. Everyone keeps telling me to read it.
It's so good.
Okay.
It's so good. Oh my God. I could go on a rant. I can't actually because PJ can't hear anything about him.
Okay, well,
because we're eventually going to cover them on the show.
Knowing that
no, you can't.
We have like the same favorite or nonfiction. I feel like I'll probably really like it then.
They're so good. Okay. And there's that, and then recently also the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee are definitely the top two that I would recommend post Red Rising. Fonda Lee's in particular because of her appreciation of character, and it just feels it's not obvious. It's like Asian mafia in kind of this interesting like 1970s setting. And you wouldn't think that would bring a good parallel to Red Rising, but it does because the characters and the family and the sense of camaraderie and community, it's wild. And in the same way it makes you question your morals. It's so good. It's so good.
Okay, I'm going to read it then. So good. I need some good stuff.
Those are the two that came out of that as follow-up recommendations for folks. So you've talked a couple of times this year about splitting PB Doodles and Grumpy Sea Urchin. Is that the other one?
Yeah, it's not good. It's not its working name. It'll change. I'm just like, I love
that name personally.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I just needed a placeholder, and I was just like, well, I guess.
But kind of switching the like Sea Life Awareness brand campaign. I don't know how you describe that page. We, of course, want to bring awareness to that. Can you describe kind of what that other project is? What you want it to be? What your goal is?
So I'm hoping to launch it in the middle of April when I get back from my only diving trip this year. Sad day.
Oh.
But so basically with like the Red Rising stuff, it became a really awesome platform for like fundraising. And I've always have tried to figure out a way to combine art with like humanitarian charity issues. Because that's like what I want to do. Like my ultimate goal in life is to be the next like Jane Goodall, but for like art conservation, if that makes sense. Like Jane Goodall is just like, I'm not going to say my idol because she's a human and makes mistakes too. But like if I could like model my life after someone, it would be her. So my thoughts are like, you've got the Red Rising and the science fiction concept art, which is like a huge passion of mine. But I wanted to split it into something that is more sustainable, if you will. And so I've been working on an entire different line, completely not science fiction related, of how can I put this without giving too much away? Basically, it's a nature series that is very tongue-in-cheek, satire, humor related. It's traditional art, ballpoint pen. I'm painting with coffee, so that's the coloring. It's coffee. There's going to be stickers. There's going to be like prints, cards, whatever. And then my goal is to have minimum 20% of all profits go to nature conservation charities. And that's the long-term goal. That's the kind of stuff that I want to get into coffee shops. That's the kind of stuff that I want to sustain, like figure out a way to sustain my art business, coming from a business point of view, because, I love Red Rising, but it's not where I want to stop, like, I don't want to just be like, well, here I am. And this is my one trick pony. So, because I hate college, and even though I have a degree, I don't want to go back and get my like master's in marine biology. And so my only real way of getting involved with conservation and getting to be around animals is to go that route. That was very long-winded. I don't even know if I answered the question.
No, I think you did. Also, our podcast is long-winded, so
okay.
You're okay.
We're long-winded
okay.
people in general. No, that sounds awesome. I'm in the same boat as far as school goes, but I did end up going back to school.
What are you going back to school for?
Ready to be done. Mechanical engineering.
Nice.
So I've got less than a semester left. So Ready to finish that up.
Finally.
Finally.
Yeah, totally making that work.
That's so such a cool project, and I will absolutely be contributing.
I'm really excited.
super,
It's
super
kind of
cool.
one of those projects where I'm giggling to myself while working on these stupid drawings. I love them. They're so fantastic. I am tooting my own horn. I'm sorry, but when I am doing them, I am laughing. So you all know,
I mean, that's the best way of doing it. I always think of the Edward Gorey alphabet, and I've been on a big Edward Gorey kick, so I ordered 4 Edward Gorey art books because I love it. It's so good. Recently, and I was just I need that in my life, and I can just, even with your subtle description, I can just kind of imagine the direction, and even some of the day in the life comic strip esque things and explainers that you posted remind me very much of the oatmeal in their own way, in a small format way.
I love the oatmeal.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I was I just want something that's super lighthearted, and I think no one actually grows out of their I love animals phase. They just kind of forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, if you could bring humor and conservation together, I feel like that is the ultimate goal. That's just always been my passion. And it feels like it's time now. I feel like I'm competent enough to make another business work that's not just freelance. So we're going to give it a go. Yeah. I'm going to try.
that's so exciting.
Yeah. So, if I'm just, if you hear frustrated screaming from across the country, that's just me trying to be a business owner again.
Starting up the next big thing.
Ugh.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I definitely understand that. PJ, did you have any other off-the-cuff questions that had pulled out of your bunghole?
I mean, you mentioned that you're probably going to text Crossland later, say this is what I wanted to say. I'm sure I'm going to think of things later, but this has been such a fun time getting to talk to you and hearing your insight on all these things. I don't have any off the cuff questions.
Okay.
All right.
This is so interesting. So we've actually never done an interview, right? So we've never actually interviewed someone. So this is completely different for us because generally speaking, it's like a group, it's like a single focused group conversation or something like that. So we'll be talking about other stuff. This is worthwhile. What character do you relate to the most, and which one do you resent the most out of Red Rising? We'll just dip back in.
I hate that question, Cross. You get an F in interviewing skill for putting me on the spot. I'm sorry I was so mean to you the other day. I didn't mean it. Okay, I'm really gonna have to think about that one. Who do I relate to the most? I'm definitely not a gold. I can tell you that right now. Who do I resent the most? What do you mean by resent? Is that somebody I wish I was type of resent? Or
dislike for their
dislike.
opinions, their stance, their world, who are you? I mean,
all of
it
them?
could be any reason.
Almost all of them. And I think that's why I like the book so much, is because I get to a point where I'm you're all assholes. What's wrong with you? So, it changes when you reread the books again. There's sometimes I'll reread a book and be I hate Darrow. What is wrong with him?
Darrow sucks.
Yeah, so you're what's wrong with you? So it kind of changes, who I resent based on what I'm reading and how I'm feeling that day, because they all have their assholey moments. And as far as who do I relate to the most, I almost feel like I can't answer that question. I feel like somebody who knows me really well would have to, you know what I'm saying? Because you want to project I want to be this character, and you're there's no way in hell you're that character, lady. Wishful thinking. I don't know, but I do know that I would be a cracked out Violet for 100% sure. So I can tell you that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
PJ, I need to hear yours. At this point, you've had some distance from the series. You've had some time, finally to process.
I've had some time. Who do I don't know.
See, right?
We're supposed to be asking the tough questions here. We're not supposed to be answering them.
Cross is on his shit again.
I'm on my power trip. You know me.
I think.
Is it gonna do it? Is it gonna answer the question?
Is it gonna work?
Is it gonna answer?
Am I gonna answer? Am I gonna answer it? I'd probably. I'd be somebody just on the ground floor of everything. I don't think I'd want to be elevated in any sort of way. So some orange somewhere. Elevator operator. I think that's where
I'm
I'd land.
imagining like this, like we're all cast of characters in Red Rising, but instead of being Red Rising, it's like Arrested Development.
You know, they've never been depicted poorly. Like, Browns feel like they get off easy for how low they are in the hierarchy, right? Like, it feels like Pierce probably doesn't know how to write about Browns because there's a meta name problem there. But, like, on top of that, there's so little, like, context that we get. So I feel like if you wanted to escape notice, you might be a Brown. Like, you're just kind of doing chores. I don't know.
Yeah.
Pop in an audio book, audio log, I'm sure.
I would not want to be a pink, though. Like, of all of
Cooks,
the colors,
man.
like, ugh. Ooh. No. Mm-mm. I'd rather be a red.
Yeah.
That's
I
true.
think so.
They pretty much,
I think so.
yeesh.
Yeah, I feel like
They've definitely got that.
that's just like the worst.
Yeah, no.
Couldn't agree more. All right, so
That's pretty rough. I do have like most hated character. What's his fucking name? The
You hate him a lot.
starts with a P. The copper guy starts with a P.
Publius El Caraval.
Yep.
Publius,
He's a piece of garbage.
Yep.
piece of trash. It was so much fun going through that series and like talking to you, and you were just so up. You're so positive about this dude. Like, I think everyone is. They're like, oh, this guy's the incorrigible. He's the good guy. And you're like, and he's standing for all these things. And I was just sitting there snickering the whole time, like, I can't believe he's falling for it, just like I did.
Pierce is about to just wreck his world.
There are so few people that I fell for.
Yeah.
There's so few of those situations.
He gets us all.
That was
That one.
yeah, he got me.
That one got
Yeah.
PJ so hard that he was like, I called him our boy. Like, he is not our boy.
You just sit in a dark room for a couple of hours and just think about things.
Contemplate hours of past recordings. Like, can we go fix that? Can we delete that? Can we fix my opinion? That's good. That's good. Publius is fairly awful. I can agree with that.
He's got a shitty name too.
There's that. There's
Publius.
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 Publius is more accurate. You know, I'd go ahead and argue for
Brought in the poop jokes.
oh man, we can't help it. We can't stop. It happens every time. We always arrive here on accident. Like, it's not it's okay. I'm gonna flush right away from that joke and go into I've grown to particularly appreciate the Ashlord reread, more or less, like, you know, but Atlas especially is detestable and a wonderful character. Like, he is a character that I resent, but in the most interesting sense of the word, because, like, he could do the right thing, but he's choosing not to.
Correct. Correct.
And your portrayal of him is incredible. In particular, like, him holding the sword backwards and kind of that stance against his back. I freaked out when I saw that. I was like, and then the mask, and then you've got the mask, and it's just like the baby face. It's a little bit too much, but it's just right.
Come in for your happiness, Cross.
I felt it seep from me that day, and it has never returned. Like a lost dog in the darkness.
No.
I could keep going. We can keep digging this hole. All right, so to wrap it up here, I spent all day trying to think of a question that we would end these with consistently that could be fun. But for the time being, since I haven't thought of a good one yet, and maybe I'll repose it, we'll just do a quick 10-minute. What have you been into this week? What's your like new thing? What's your recommendation for people
Oh gosh. Okay. So right now, like what I'm reading,
outside of not living in the East?
not living in the East. You know, Josh like, what do
right.
you like anybody here? I'm like, oh, it's interesting. I don't know if I want to live here unless it was on the coast. A little flat.
The coast is great. I live on the coast, but
Lucky. Like I was like, can we please go to the coast? It's like it's 3 hours away. I was like, oh, fine.
yeah.
So I'm finishing up a book called Fuzz this week, and I love it. It is a fiction. It's a nonfiction book. It was written by a science journalist. It's talking about where like people and animals meet, like animal attacks and like problem nature. It's fascinating. It's hilarious. It's depressing. Wonderfully written. So I'm into that. Good grief, I'm a boring human. You know, my life is very boring. So I had grits for breakfast. That's the first time. Like all of the like exciting stuff has happened today. Like I had grits for the first time, and I saw a Waffle House sign, which I thought only existed in Reddit lore, next to like really effective mods and like what's another Reddit lore? Or the Bermuda Triangle. I didn't know the Waffle Houses actually exist, but they do, and that was like mind blowing for me. Yeah. We don't.
Have you stepped inside one yet?
No, I'm afraid to because I have read the Reddit stories, and so I'm just like, no, thank you.
I don't know if it's real
But
until
it's
you
so
step
good.
inside.
But it's so good.
The sign was enough for me. And then I went
That's
to the
fair.
zoo today, which was super exciting because I got to go by myself, and I was literally like the only person there, and I got really excited because I got to hang out with all of the animals for like as long as I wanted to, and usually I'm rushed through it. But it was so like all of my exciting stuff was literally today. Like within the last 24 hours, I have the most interesting human being on the planet. All the other 364 days have been wildly boring. There you go.
All right, that's solid. That's a good list of recommendations. PJ, what are you into? What do you have? Let's hear it. I want to carry you a new one. That doesn't count.
I've been learning about metrology,
Ew. Oh, have you guys
which is
listened?
the study of
You
precise
should go on
measurement.
that Ologies podcast with Ali Ward. That's a good podcast too.
The Ologies podcast. I don't know that I've heard of
It's
it.
so good.
have
You
not
guys should
heard of
listen to it. And now that you're an Ologies person, you should totally be like, yo, Ali, let's talk about whatever you just said.
Oh, that's
All right.
actually that's a really interesting concept.
It's super entertaining. Like I listened to the Squid podcast. The Toothologist was like fascinating. And then I listened to the Coral one, of course. I basically listened to all the ocean ones, of course. Like that's very predictable of me. So
Ah, yes, that fits your brand entirely. So it just makes sense. It just tracks. That's it, PJ. Just metrology again. This is the second week in a row that you've said that.
Did I say that last
like
week?
3 weeks ago. It was something like that. I asked you for like the
I
fun
mean-
thing that you're doing, and you're like,
Okay,
I'm taking
all
a
right, so
metrology
what I've
course.
been
And I'm
doing-
like, maybe you're a bigger nerd than I thought. Like maybe you're really into the way things are measured for some reason.
So I've been building out dog kennels for the last couple weeks. Underneath our in our crawl space under our kitchen, we've been building like a built-in dog kennel for both of our dogs, and it's finally all coming together. We got the bars in, we got all of the walls like sheetrocked and painted, and we're painting like paw prints and bones on the back wall. We got wallpaper up on the
Wow.
outside of it. I'm really excited
Wow.
about it. It looks really, really good.
I was gonna say
Or
kennel.
dog room. Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of new skills. I got to buy new tools.
I feel like this is
So, like,
perfect
that's
for a
been
mechanical
fun.
engineer. There you go. You built stuff.
Yeah, it's been great. Been building stuff. I'll throw a picture of it into the document. What about you, Crossland? While I'm putting this together.
Wow, now that I'm on the spot all of a sudden, I'm like, did I do anything interesting this week?
Yeah, eat
know,
the shade you've been throwing everyone.
I finished
Eat the shade.
I finished the third Mistborn era book today, Bands of Mourning, and beyond that, I guess the new Dimension 20 season has started, and so I've been watching that. Dimension 20 is a live play, role play. Actually, it's not really live play, but it's a group of 6 people sitting at a table, but it's a little bit more curated and kind of, it's generally a nicer presentation, but it's a ton of fun. So I've been watching those new episodes in addition to working way too goddamn much.
Hey.
Hey!
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I guess that's it. We didn't write an outro for this either. All right.
Yeah.
Let me,
How do you end interviews?
shit.
Like that. You just scream shit and then you just call it good.
Cut. Actually, I do definitely understand. So where can people find you? Thank you again so much for coming here, hanging out with us. Contact you if we need to re-record the first bit.
Oh, where can people find me? You can find me on Instagram at PB Doodles. That's like legitimately it. I have a TikTok account that I never use, which is also, I think. Actually, I don't remember what it is. I don't use it, so.
And then the
Yeah.
projects that you're working on as well are going to be through, or that are coming out
Yeah.
or have came out.
Yeah. You will find, so when I'm ready to release the second half of PB Doodles, I will announce it on my Instagram page. If you like my art and want to support me in paying my bills, I have an Etsy shop. It also linked into the Instagram page. Yeah, that's where you can find me. I always.
And then Kickstarter shit escalates.
Oh,
and
yes. So that launches at noon Eastern Standard Time on February 1st. Shit Escalates will release the website link, and then I will share that on PB Doodles as well. Yeah. That's...
Do we know what date that comes
February
up?
1st.
Yeah, everything's February
Okay.
1st, noon Eastern Standard Time that I know of. I know it's February 1st. I think it's noon some time zone. I don't really know. Don't ask me what time zone right now. And it goes until for a month, so 30 days. So I think it ends like March 5th, I think. And then you can buy as many as you want. There's talks of keeping the card decks in the Shit Escalates store going forward, but all of like the special Kickstarter versions and whatnot is going to be on the Kickstarter version. I don't know how much I can say about it, so I won't.
Well, this isn't coming out until the day or after.
Oh,
so
okay. Well, in that case,
yeah.
There's going to be you have the House Mars deck. There's the Olympic deck, which has like the pyramid on the back. That's the $20 card deck. I'm pretty sure shipping is included. Then you have the House Mars deck. Then you can buy a box of. Some of them have gilded edges. Some of them are going to be signed by Pierce Brown. You can buy like a brick of 8 if you want a brick of 8. There's so many like versions you could buy. So
awesome. That is fantastic. Super excited for that. We'll have links to those, of course, in our show notes, as we always do for all of the things that people talk about on the show. And yeah, that's been the show. I guess, PJ, we will record a sign off some other time because I don't know what the fuck we're going to put here.
I think you should just say that. That's like...
Yeah,
that might be the end of this
that's a
episode.
good ending.
So that's where we're going to leave you for this week, folks. Thank you so much for coming and listening to the Short Pour. This is a new project that both PJ and I are working on. We're super excited to share with everyone. It's a fantastic new thing that we're exploring and producing. We're very excited for your support. This, all told, is going to be found underneath Words and Whiskey. So you don't need to follow any new social accounts or anything like that. We're just going to use our current existing social accounts. However, there will be a new podcast feed coming out relatively soon that will house any of the new ones of these after February. So we are doing 2 additional episodes, this month on top of this one. The first you just listened to, that's the PB Doodles episode. The second is going to be an episode covering romance novels and the range of romance to smut, and kind of talking about, with a full panel of awesome and excellent women, about how that ranges. That comes out on Valentine's Day, February 14th. And then the third episode is going to be our interview with Rob Hart, his upcoming release, The Paradox Hotel, as well as discussing some previous things in his catalog. We're very excited for all 3 of these episodes and can't wait for you to hear them. If you're looking for something to do, though, leave a review, share this. This is going to be a new thing, and we're very excited to pursue this and get this new avenue out there to everyone. So thank you again for all of your support. You can follow us on Twitter, Words Whiskey Pod, Instagram, same thing, Reddit, same thing. You can contact us at wordsandwhiskeyshow@gmail.com and support us over at patreon.com/wordsandwhiskey. We've got all kinds of tiers launching actually in conjunction with this episode. So if you checked it out before, check it out again today. We've got some new things coming out, including the ability to sponsor your own episode and make PJ and I talk about something that you love. You want to hear our opinion on it? Well, you can buy that now. All right. Have a good one, folks.